So much everyone for joining us. Let's get to our conversation. Exclusive conversation with the Honorable Minister for Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani, who joins us live here in our studio. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
There is a huge responsibility on your ministry. It's one of the ministry that we understand that the president is looking forward to, that Nigeria is going to not only get a global acclaim in terms of what we are capable of doing, but also the kind of money, digital economy. The president had turned some ministry into economic, he's look at the viability, the way manner it has been tweaked. If you look at the Ministry of Culture, it's tweaked it into an economic ministry also, such as yours. So, but then, what would you say the mandates, simply put? Because we understand that there was somewhat an understanding between the president and his ministers on performance, which you guys signed the dotted lines. Absolutely. What is the president expecting from you?
Shem, I think I should start by expressing my deep condolences for the lives lost in Kaduna to the unfortunate accident. So the question, it's not just about money. It's not just about what we can bring into the economy. I think it's been well documented over many years in humanity, the role of technology in driving economic growth and prosperity. And what the president is looking at here, with a very clear understanding that the diversification of the Nigerian economy that we are all interested in can only be achieved through technical efficiency. And in this sense, it's about how do we bring modern digital technologies to disrupt the way we currently do things in many aspects of our society. When you look at the challenges that we face in education, for instance, what role can technology play to help to improve the learning outcomes in that space? How can technology help in education, in agriculture, to raise the level of productivity, just to ensure that we can actually produce not only to feed ourselves, but also to export? But I think the exciting thing about technology and how it can influence our economy is actually around the talent. As you know, Nigeria is a country with over 60% of our population under the age of 25, which means we're a very youthful population. And the global technology workforce is facing a massive decline, where in many Western countries, they actually don't have enough workforce. So not only can we produce talents to leapfrog and develop our own economy, we can actually become a net exporter of talents as well. So when you look at technology and the role that our ministry play in that sense, you see that there's no strong future for Nigeria without the Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy.
For those who will say, yes, you have experience, that is what you've done for the best part of your life. Absolutely. And there are those who will say, let us see the footprint of what you are capable of. I mean, there are the government has been criticized for even using Yahoo Mail to transact and to relate and communicate official messages from government.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, there are those who will say, what have you shown in the last few days to show that there is someone who has the expertise that is on board?
So the challenge with technology is that technology in itself is not just about the tool. There's a strong social element to it. If you look at the history of how we've deployed technology in Nigeria, the government has actually invested significantly in technology, but most of the time this has been done in silos. And those silos is where the challenge is, because when you do these things in silo, you don't have the opportunity at scale to actually encourage the usage. So what we've done is to understand that this is not something you just come in and switch on. It doesn't work that way, because the reason why you still see those emails are more people issue than actually just technology issue. So there's a lot of change management that needs to happen in the adoption.
There are those who will say also policy.
No, there is policy.
So are you creating policy?
Absolutely.
There are policies, infrastructure,
absolutely.
And the end point, the end goal is for us to see not only in terms of money, but literally we're seeing a change. Those who advise, they say, go to China, look at their airport, digitize. As soon as you are landing there, you see the difference. Go to Singapore, you will see. If you are arriving in some part of the world, everything is almost digitized. You go to restaurant. But again, there are those who will say, do we have infrastructure? We are still having drop calls in this country without those telcos are just doing the way they like and without apologies, in the manner in which business as usual. These are some of the issues. And if you say that it's about social issues, but the question is that, have you been able to introduce policies
Absolutely.
that will drive the social change?
Absolutely. Of course, policy is not something you introduce in 3 months. If anyone is promising you that, that's a big fat lie. You don't introduce policy in 3 months. But one thing we've done in the first 100 days that is proving to be extremely tactical, but also strategic as well, is the introduction of our strategic blueprint. And I always ask people to go back to the strategic blueprint, because this is the sort of public agreement, with the citizens and the stakeholders on how we're going to go about delivering the renewed hope agenda. And what you have in the strategic blueprint are 5 distinct, clear pillars, which start with knowledge, saying that you cannot appropriate and leverage technology effectively in any society without having the workforce and the know-how. The second is what you're referring to, which is policy. And we've clearly stated there a list of set of policies that we're actually either going to be working on or updating to ensure that Nigeria can benefit deeply from digital technologies. The third thing we've done is actually in that pillar, we've introduced what we've called infrastructure, which is understanding the fact that at the base, we do have as a country a significant investment that has gone into communication infrastructure. Nigeria is one of the few countries in Africa with 7 submarine cables, now going to 9 because Meta is bringing another 2, which is landing before the end of the year. That's significant investment that can actually help to improve the quality of connectivity in the country. And what we're also doing on that infrastructure is to then say, how do we mobilize resources to ensure that that submarine cable can be taken into every corner of the country? So if you read that document, you're going to find that there. And to the point you were making about drop calls is a function of many things, not just the inefficiency of the MNOs. Drop call is a function of the base stations being installed to carry the communication, sometimes being destroyed. Drop calls is a function of availability of the base station itself. And what we're doing is that if we drive the investment into fiber optic cables across Nigeria, you will see the quality of connectivity is going to go up significantly.
How much of that have we been able to in terms of fiber connectivity?
So there is clear targets. There's a work that has been done by the last government that's clearly stated that Nigeria needs to lay 95,000 kilometers of cable. Where we are at about now is that about 35,000 to 45,000 has been laid. Our goal in the next 4 years is to plug that gap significantly. And in the last 3 months, we've actually done significant work, which is leading us to being able to set up a fund that will help companies to lay those cables. And it can be done.
So is this a government-funded project?
No, government.
So it's private sector that is laying the cables?
Yes, it's private sector that is laying the cable, but we're looking to mobilize development fund to set up a fund that the private sector can draw from. That's not a government fund. It's a fund that the private sector can draw from and use that to lay the cable. Because there are a few issues around laying cable. Private companies will tell you, I can't lay fiber optic cable in certain areas because those areas are not commercially viable. But what we're building is the ability to say, at the barest minimum, we should be able to connect our schools, hospitals, government offices. Because once we can do this, you start to see changes in the delivery of public services, to citizens, but also it becomes more effective as well for government to provide services. These are things that we've stated clearly, very clearly in our strategic blueprint.
Yeah, you've talked about infrastructure, policy, then the other legs are innovation, entrepreneurship, and capital, and then trade. And I will go there, but I will also like you to touch on the low-hanging fruit, because Nigerians want to see how their lives can be better, yes, in the long run, good, which will last and be permanent, but they want what they can also get now.
Yeah.
So, and I'd like you to quickly clarify for us, because since you're here, do we have 5G in Nigeria yet?
We do in some places. We do
How
have 5G.
effective it is? Because there is a lot of distrust that a lot of these operators, they will tell you they have 5G.
Yeah, they do.
But in the real sense, they're selling fake and lies to customers. And we are buying all of these. And those who will say in the early years of selling 5G, it never existed actually in this country.
I totally disagree. And my job is not to come on here to defend MNOs, even though I'm the regulator in essence of that sector. I personally don't think the MNOs are lying. I think that's based on, so the infrastructure that drives 5G is not something that is across the entire nation. So if you're subscribed to 5G and you move into locations where the infrastructure cannot support it, of course the quality will drop. But 5G exists in Nigeria. There are telcos who have the license, and that license it's already been provided. It's dead. It's not live. So that's something we need to clarify.
So you are monitoring the quality also.
Of course, that's the role of NCC.
Because a lot of Nigerians who are watching tonight who are having problems in connectivity, especially their mobile connections, not to talk of internet connections.
Absolutely.
And there seems to be, so you have, and I can tell you easily, I mean, a lot of the times before you get into government, perhaps you've seen it happen a lot of time. And I'm not talking about being in your office, because you would have provided a strong internet connection in your room and in your office. There are a lot of the times you connect with someone in London, you connect with someone in New York, in the US, their own connection on Skype, on Zoom, crisp.
Yeah.
But over here, then you have problems. So the question will be, even when there are drop costs, when there are problems, you imagine that some of these operators will reach out to customers to say, tomorrow we are going to be having a problem with our connection. Bear with us. These are some of the incentives that we're giving you because we had, in the last 3 days, bad networks. You can imagine how many times I wanted to call out the operators online. I just look.
I think there's some intellectual conversations around this, and I do know that ordinary citizens without the technical understanding of how these services are provided may not have the understanding. So there are times that you experience bad connection. Again, I'm not here to take a brief for, but there are times you experience bad connection that is simply due to the fact that an infrastructure has been destroyed somewhere. So one of the first memo that I've been working on as a minister is actually to declare telecommunications infrastructure critical national infrastructure. Because there are times people go vandalize a base station, steal some of the things there to go resell. Every time that is done, it gets in the way of quality of connection that citizens get. There are times people dig the ground and they end up breaking fiber optic cables. Those fiber optic cables also contribute to the quality of service that you and I get. Those things are not, the telcos are not pre-warned that someone is going to go somewhere to steal something. The quality of service, in their opinion, they want you to experience the best quality of service.
But Minister, I'm looking at the fact that the customer is king in that industry.
It is, yeah.
And so when there's a disruption, the customer is not a witch or a magician to know what exactly the problem is. Isn't it incumbent on the provider to say, yes, we had a problem yesterday, apologies for the problem, but they don't just go on as though nothing is happening. For them, a lot of people would say Nigeria is just a climate.
So for them, typically what they would do is switch into action to try and go plug that gap where there's that infrastructure that has been destroyed. What we're now doing with NCC is actually shifting. So we used to call this quality of service. We're now shifting it to quality of experience. The conversation is now moving into the need for MNOs to actually engage the citizen. Because there's a lot of knowledge gap around the services that you consume, what leads to quality and what leads to bad quality services most of the time. So that conversation is what needs to be managed, and is one of the things that myself and the head of NCC is now looking to improve, to ensure that the MNOs not only take into consideration the provision of quality service from the hard side, but also
I'd like to obtain a commitment from you tonight.
Absolutely.
And for a lot of my viewers of this program who are trusting that since you are here, we might as well be able to let everyone know that it is not business as usual in this country.
It's not.
Where people take your money.
It's not.
And if you can give a commitment tonight, that it won't be business as usual. If the MNOs, if the operators have a problem, they should, as a matter of respect to customers and the decency of their service and the provision of their service, to reach out tonight. Are you able to commit to that?
Absolutely, I'm committing to it, but I'm not committing to it with vague words. I'm committing to it in two ways. First is at NCC today, there's a strong drive to engage and ensure that the quality of service is topmost on the agenda of the entire industry. That's something I'm committing to, and we're prioritizing that. But the second thing also from a technical perspective, which is a conversation that is not common, is that I understand as a minister that if we prioritize fiber optic cable in this country, quality of service, whether it's through your normal mobile telephony or the internet services that you use at home, it's going to go off the roof. And that's the commitment I'm also making, that in the next 4 years, we are going to do everything possible to increase the number of kilometers of fiber optic cable in Nigeria.
How long can that take us? We've done 35.
The goal is to reach,
how many kilometers?
We're about 35, 40 kilometers right now.
And we needed to go to about 90.
We need to go to 95,000 kilometers.
So we're about a quarter
almost halfway in there. Almost halfway in there. As
and it will cost us how many
From
billion?
the calculation, this is a good question. We did the calculation. I've had meetings over meetings, and we finished that meeting today on this particular conversation. It's going to cost us roughly about $1.5 to $2 billion to wire the entire Nigeria and to reach that 95,000.
What is it, the timeline, the duration that this?
Well, we hope that we can accelerate in the next 6 to 12 months, secure that funding that private companies can tap into. It's not government money. And hopefully then work with serious companies that can lay fiber over the next 2 to 3 years. We're hoping that before the first 4 years of this administration, that a significant portion of that 95,000 kilometers can be covered. We've made that commitment. If you check that strategic blueprint, you will find it there. I understand this sector, and I'm not one, Sheung, to commit to solutions that will only, make our lives better in the next 1 or 2 months, but to commit to solutions that will ensure that not only are we able to talk about 5G, but any technology that is coming beyond that, the Nigeria can actually participate and benefit from it. So
one area that I'd like you to speak on, because a lot of you who pioneered, who had the opportunity, the benefit of the first entrance into your sector. And it's sad for me to say this a lot of the times, but it's also an eye-opener. If you're singing or you're playing football, in my own time, going to secondary school, you sing as a ridiculous student. But it's gotten to the point that every person wants his or her child to play football, because if you go to Europe, you make a lot of money. Everybody now wants his or her own child to be a Davido, a Burna Boy, or even be a Moses Bliss. And when on some of these streaming platforms, they're making enormous money. But guess what? Nigeria is not making any money out of those revenues that these young persons are making. And by the way, it's an opportunity for me to say, those young Nigerians who are making effort and train the blades, whatever they are, kudos to you, and you're making us proud. Wherever you're selling out O2 Arena, selling out London stadiums. And you wonder, what are we doing to get to that level such that these streaming platforms, some of this money can come into the Nigerian economy?
I'm from the sector, and I'm one of the people who started the first technology hubs in this country, right? So what you're speaking to, I understand the technical side of it. It's a function of investment and return, right? And globally, the source of funding to technology and media is traditionally been from the US. Again, I direct your viewers to the strategic blueprint that we've released. You see, the portion where you called innovation, entrepreneurship, and capital is actually focused on raising the stock of local patient capital that can go into technology companies. Because the reason why we lose out from the returns that you're mentioning is that the bulk of the money that goes into investment into technology companies, media companies, they come from abroad. And their investors would typically require that they domicile their businesses outside of the country. So what we're doing, which is we've set out for ourselves, is to actually say we need good quality stock of money. And the first thing that we worked on, which was led from the Vice President office, is over 650 million US dollars funding to technology and creative companies in Nigeria, which is now going to open up and is going to be active. In my ministry, we have it in our agenda again to not only limit that funding to that 650, but to raise more money. And if you read that document, it clearly states that we want to increase the percentage of locally domiciled technology and creative companies in Nigeria. The way you capture that value is for them to be able to access capital locally and get them to domicile locally through policies and enabling environment, which will allow them to believe that they can domicile their businesses in Nigeria. And that's how government and society benefit from. This is something I understand very deeply, and I've been championing even before becoming a minister.
So you look at it, the state in the United States where the big techs are domiciled has perhaps the GDP of that state is perhaps almost larger than more than half of the African continent. And you imagine that is just one state, and it tells you, and you will say that the GDP of just about 5 or 6 of the US tech companies, Facebook, Google, and the rest of them, the big ones, are in fact bigger than the whole economy of Nigeria I'm talking about. And so you imagine how enormous the potential of tech is in Nigeria. What are we looking in that direction? Where are we going to situate?
That's what I said.
What are the opportunities and what is the immediate plan?
That is the description of the strategic blueprint that I've been talking about, driving economic growth through technical efficiency. You see what you've described, and most of the time we don't pay attention to where that competitiveness originated from for those countries you're talking about. Historically, these are countries that a lot of them are older than ours. A lot of these countries had the privilege and the opportunity to invest in the first, second, and third industrial revolution. And those industrial revolutions were led by technology. All the technologies that the entire globe consumed before we got to the point where we now started to use digital technologies were produced by them. So they were sitting on that pile of cash to be able to build themselves into the fourth industrial revolution, which is where we now have the opportunity to play. And when we look at the numbers, when I started CC Hub 15 years ago, Nigeria was not rated at all as part of the technology superpower on the African continent. Today, Nigeria has the highest number of African companies that are worth over $1 billion US. The highest number of unicorns are from Nigeria. In 15 years of people actually believing that technology can do this. If we're being honest to ourselves, I think your last question, segue perfectly into this one, but I think this should have come before that. In the sense that when you look at the media space as well, we now have giants and superstars that are commanding significant amount of money. It is cup that is half full, not empty. And what we need to be doing is the question you asked earlier, Shell, which is now that we're seeing a lot of our people creating businesses in tech, in media, we have personality that are earning well. What do we do to ensure that we can domicile them back home? We don't need to complain about it as if we've lost. What we've done is we've gotten to the stage where we're now part of that global economy. But the global economy is structured to capture the best from anywhere in the world. It is our responsibility to ensure that we can bring that best back. And there's no other government, I believe, can do it but this government. Our president is very, very pro-business. The only thing he wants to talk about, what do we do to help businesses? It's prioritizing small businesses. It's prioritizing large businesses. I'm from the startup ecosystem. If there's anyone that understands the growth that we've seen in the last 15 years, I think I'm the one. So we're in a perfect position.
Let me put you on the spot.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to ask you, we know that oil is our mainstay. And there are a lot of Nigerians and the world was in Dubai talking about how to cut down fossil fuel. And you wonder, those policies, we have not even moved close into achieving the full potential of what fossil fuels would do for us, and whether or not our environment or our technology here in Nigeria is ready for that revolution. But the question is, what kind of economy or the quantum, what is the amount of the tech can we achieve within the next 2 years?
The amount of tech that we can achieve.
The number, the quantum in terms of monetary value.
You're in the media space, and I'm sure if I tell you about Fintech, you have a solid understanding of it. You know why you do? Because in the last 5 years, Nigeria built a significant industry within the fintech space. We rode off the back of the progress that we made with the banking sector, which has been extremely innovative in the last 10, 15 years. And then with the creation of NIBS, the interbank exchange system, and you started seeing a lot of startups that were building for fintech. In a space of 5 years, we've seen significant number of fintechs coming from Nigeria. What is possible in 2 to 4 years in Nigeria is that we can prioritize agriculture, education, and mainstream technologies in those sectors. And the biggest opportunity that I think we're all sleeping on is actually the fact that the president took away this fuel subsidy. I expect that everywhere will be littered with conversation on energy transition. If we do that, we're a country that still needs to balance our sources of energy, right? And we have the opportunity for us to be talking energy transition, the amount of investment in the world that exists for that space. The innovators should be talking about it. If I was still at CC Hub, a unit will be focused on energy transition. I started something similar with UNIDO before leaving, but right now there's a need for a strong focus on that area, because if we focus there, not only can we drive significant investment to our market, we can begin to create businesses at the level of what we've done with fintech. So there's massive opportunity there. Nobody is stopping us. But I think at the minute, in the last 3 months or 6 months of this administration, there's been a bit of focus on talking down the administration.
What kind of the measure? If you put a measure to it, what amount that we how can you measure the kind of money that can come out of that sector within the next
energy transition?
No, I'm talking about the IT sector. With I mean, we have not fully gained advantage of that. But if you calculate what our oil sector gives to us, we know what our Greek sector is giving to us. We know what our export sector is giving us. In that sector, what kind of
let me put it. What is
the margin?
In context with the numbers that we're seeing at the minute, right? I would imagine the potentials for technology in Nigeria is still probably at about 2%. Hypothetically, I've not used anything to
of the entire GDP
of what it's possible. It's not up to.
We've 2%. Not even scratched the surface.
I don't think so. But you know the funny thing, Shil, last quarter, the sector contributed over 16% to our GDP. That's the context you're looking for. So if people still think like we're talking about something that is a joke, imagine a sector that is still just at about 2%. It's about 2%. You mentioned it at the start of this thing that you go to places, when you go to the airport, it's automated, schools are automated, hospitals. We were not automated yet. Yet, that sector contributed over 16% to our GDP.
Minister,
so if we drive that sector with the kind of energy, I'll implore anyone that is interested in this sector to go look for that strategic blueprint. There's no need talking.
Where can they find it?
It's on the website of the ministry. You know, the Federal Ministry of Communications. It's on. Just put it in Google. You will find out the website of the ministry. Right. Go on there. You will see the strategic blueprint. Every conversation you want to have.
We can help you. If you cannot find it, I promise you, just get onto Channels Television's website tonight. You will find it. We'll put a copy there.
Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. You'll find it.
So in case you get it there. But again, let's look at it this way. If there is one major thing that Nigeria can export to the rest of the world in terms of digital economy, what would that be?
It's talent. That's why I'm aggressive about it. The first program I launched is the 3 million technical talent. It's talent. You go to Europe, it's aging population. Their population is declining. Those that they have are aging. They're not giving birth to enough people. You can't drive technology without people. We have the talent. 60% of our population, digital natives. All you need to give them is opportunity to learn. And that's why we started the 3 million technical talent project, which is open to everyone from across the country. We started the pilot in the next 3 months with 30,000 people. And by February next year, we're going to scale that to 300,000, just so that we can ensure that as we train them, we give them the opportunity to find jobs. That is the biggest thing we can explore. And it's been done. It's the same thing China did. It's the same thing India did. And once you have significant pool of talent, it opens you up to opportunities.
1 million digital jobs. Yeah. That's what President Tinubu promised in the first 2 years.
Absolutely.
How much of that have you done in the last 100?
In the last 100?
Can you measure?
No, not fully. That's difficult to measure.
Is that possible?
It is possible. And the way we're approaching it is not looking to retain all the 1 million in Nigeria. That's the way we're approaching it, because we know there's a global opportunity for technology talent. So our goal is to ensure about 50% of that can be deployed to technology companies locally, but we want Nigeria to become a net exporter of technology talent.
Less than 15% of the GDP is what you said the sector contributed.
No, about over 16%.
16%.
Yeah, last quarter.
But your plan and your target also between now and 2027 is to get way over 20, about 22%.
Our hope is to get about 20. And you know why we're modest? It's not because we don't think it will do better than that. But because I'm also part of this cabinet and I know what is happening. I know what Minister Alake is doing with mineral resources. I know what agriculture is doing, in that space as well. I know what is happening within health. So we do expect that other sectors will continue to grow as well. So that 22% doesn't mean that it's just only increasing by 6%. No, it's because the GDP and the size of our economy we expect should continue to grow. And if we can push it to 22% of our contribution, that would actually mean the 22% today is not the same as 22% in 4 years' time. Because
you also, part of your plan is to do a 60% government data digitization by the end of 2026. Absolutely. What exactly are you looking at?
So what we're looking at there is Nigerian government has already invested significantly in technology. The problem is not technology, and we've made significant progress. There's the need that most people we're not happy with, right, because of the way it was done. But the reality is that that program was successful because we now have over 90% of Nigerian adults identified. There's a BVN which already works. We have a National Population Commission database. So we have a lot of gains in terms of technology, but they are in silos. So our work in this government is to create what we call a digital public infrastructure framework. And what that does is to try and bring up what you call the Nigerian stack. A Nigerian stack will allow us to be able to connect the different silos of technologies that exist within the different parts of government. And once you can do that, it means that Ministry of Education can see some data set the Ministry of Health is saying.
So why do we have different data all over the place, scattered?
Evolution.
Are you able to do a digital or data aggregation?
Of course we
such that we do not have 7, 8 agencies of government having the working in silo? Is that part of your immediate target?
That's part of what we're trying to drive.
How soon can we achieve that?
That's if you look at the strategic blueprint, that target I believe is probably in the first 18 months to 24.
Yeah, before the first 2 years.
Exactly, that's why because again, it's not just a technology issue. It's about harmonizing different.
The former president has set up a committee that they should sit down and he gave them a timeline that all the agencies of government with data should come together and harmonize. Up to today, nothing has
because it's a people issue in technology, and this is not unique to Nigeria. In technology, you cannot fix people issue with technology or directives only. Because you need to engage people. They need to understand how to go through that process. You need the capacity to do it. And that's why we put it there as first 18 months to 24 months. It's setting the standard, ensuring that the key actors have the proper buy-in, and you also have the resources to actually make it happen, which is what we're doing.
On a final note, NICOMSAT.
Yes.
What about that? Because a lot of people will say, we have not even utilize the capacity of, and we have the third one, isn't it? Or the second one?
The second one, but we don't have it yet, but there's a plan for it. But before we even get to that, before we invest money into that, we're extremely fortunate that we have a satellite expert now running NICOMSAT. The lady there is sold satellites all over Africa. She has a solid understanding. In the first 2 weeks of getting into office, she's optimized our Ka band and ensure that that same satellite can now provide internet connectivity. I think that's where Nigerians will see a lot of surprises. You know, despite the things that we need to meander to ensure that things can get done, she's extremely aggressive. She's got my support to ensure that the Nigerian satellite contributes significantly to our economic development.
Dr. Bosun Tijani, Honorable Minister for Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. We will come back and we'll look back at your some of your timelines and some of your targets, and we're praying for you, and we're hoping that you will achieve the very best, because it's going to be in the collective interest of our people.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much indeed for coming tonight.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks.
Let's also tell you before we close that President Bola Tinubu has arrived back in Abuja in Nigeria after days in Dubai attending the climate change summit at the COP28, and he's been received back in the country by some top government officials. That's how we draw the content on the program tonight. Thank you so much indeed, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye-bye.